Hey, everyone. Welcome back to ATD's Ask a Trainer series. I'm Jess Thompson, Content Manager for Learning and Development, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Liza Wisner. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about AI in talent development and the augmented workplace, so stick around. Hi, Liza. Welcome to this episode of Ask a Trainer. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Jess.
Well, thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to chat about this topic with you today. We're talking today about the impact or the intersection of AI with talent development and sort of this idea of the augmented workforce. But before we dive into that, do you want to share a little bit about you with our viewers?
I do. So my name is Liza Wisner. I serve Open Sesame as their enterprise curator of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I guess when you just said that topic, augmented workforce, I have been in the workforce, I guess, since I can remember. My parents were entrepreneurs, and so I've always had an interest in being at work. And I remember my mom would go to work and during the holidays, and I would get ready and go to work with her too. It was just one of those things that I always loved doing. But I remember when I immigrated here to the United States from Kenya, one of the first things that I really made a point of doing was really learning about not only the culture here, but also trying to figure out what work was happening here in the United States and how can I engage. So I've had a lot of amazing experiences in my life that had led me to the path where in college, I was thinking about what am I going to do in my future? What does my graduation look like? I'm graduating in, whatever the year is. Don't want to give my age. No, I'm kidding. But yes, whatever the year is, I was graduating and I was thinking, well, what's work going to look like in that time frame, right? So graduating with a degree in computer science really kind of lended me to that space of thinking about the future. And of course, going through my degree at Texas A&M University, I went through a process of trying to figure out who I was as a human. And through that process, I realized that I was really missing the parts of me that I loved from being back home in Kenya, which was, having people who were like me, right? So we're talking about maybe people who are Black people, right? So I was usually, one of few minorities in the classroom studying computer science. And then also being a woman, one of the few women who were in the classroom studying computer science. And I remember very clearly thinking to myself, how come there's not more people like me doing this work, right? So I want to give this as an introduction to you about who I am, because this is the core of the work that I do. I really feel like I've really been trying to contribute not only my efforts in terms of the work that I do for the organizations I serve, but also the impact I'm going to have on society and making sure that I'm represented, right? I want every little girl and every little person who sees themselves like me to see a space where they can engage in technology and see a space where they can be part of the future of workforces as I see them. And, in this breath, Jess, working with my nonprofit organization, powerup.org, we're all about providing opportunities where everyone rises up. And this was all about, for me, it was all about creating spaces where more and more people were not only able to capitalize on the strength in their society, but they weren't being left behind, because studying computer science taught me that technology is not a luxury. It's not something that, oh, wow, you can go buy the latest and greatest, or wow, you have internet access. If you do not have internet access, if you do not have access to a computer in this day and age, you are at a disadvantage. And so for me, this is really my passion, augmenting workforces, but not only that, but making sure that we're capitalizing on our strengths and making sure that we're providing opportunities where everyone gets risen up. We make sure that everyone is able to rise up in the work that we're doing.
I love that, Lisa. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. It's so inspiring, the work that you do and your passion. And speaking of your passion, we're going to go ahead and dive into AI and talking about this idea of the augmented workforce. So AI is everywhere right now, right? I feels like that's what everyone is talking about right now. And AI has this ability, or will have the ability, to sort of disrupt the workforce, how we work, how L&D operates. I recently came across this article that IBM published. They did two studies recently, and in the article, it talked about ushering this new age of the augmented workforce. And so my first question for you is, I'm wondering what organizations can do now to help their employees learn new skills to match the changes brought on by AI to the roles and then to the workforce.
What a great place for us to start, Jess. And I want to point out, first of all, that when we're talking about AI, we're talking about artificial intelligence. And when we're talking about what organizations can do to help their employees learn these new skills, what we're doing is really, helping organizations learn how to upskill, maybe reskill their employees, right, Jess? When we think about these terms, upskilling, reskilling, they're thrown around a lot, but I really feel like as an organization, you have to have a plan, right? What the question was, what can organizations do, right? So ultimately, what you have to do is really understand where are you at right now, right? Every single question about what should you do always starts with the first answer is assess, right? Assess where you're at, measure where you're at. But when we're talking about employees within the organization, there's two paths that organization can take. They can either take an upskilling path or a reskilling path. And these are the paths for me that speak volumes, because when we think about upskilling, reskilling, I hear this term being thrown around a lot. And Jess, I have to thank you because you actually sent me this article ahead of time before our interview today, and I got a chance to review it. And I have to tell you that I didn't agree with some of the things they were saying in there, because they were using the term reskilling when really they should have been saying upskilling, right? And what they were saying was that they wanted to reskill employees to be able to, do their jobs better, augmented with AI, right? So they wanted to help their employees learn how to do their job, but, do it in a way that they're using AI. Well, that is not reskilling as they're defining it. That's upskilling, right? That's like if you're playing in a video game, let's say, and you are, learning how to level up, power up your character, right? So you're playing the same game, you're just leveling up that character. Reskilling, which is really what I think they mean, right? Reskilling is actually learning a whole new game. So you're no longer playing the same game. You're playing a completely different game. You're having to learn a new job in this case, right? You're having to not only take the skills you've learned, like I guess you could say the soft human skills you've learned, and take them and translate them to a completely different game, Jess. You're not playing the same game. So, like, let's say you were playing as a wizard in one game. Now you're a space explorer, right? You're not even playing the same game. So for me, I believe, like, in this IBM article, what they're really talking about is helping people upskill, right? But ultimately, the way to success is reskilling. So I have to say, and I apologize for bringing this in there, because everyone writes articles and they define terms the way they define them. But I've been doing this work for a long time, over 20 years, and this upskilling and reskilling work for me is critical to my success. It's critical because when you're upskilling somebody, what you're doing is taking the job that they already have and helping them do it better. But reskilling means taking somebody and flipping it and putting them in a different field, making them do a completely different job, which is not what we want, right? People go into their roles because they have a passion for that industry. They have a passion for the role they have. And what we want to do is upskill them. We want to give them the tools and the resources that they need so that they can be better at what they are passionate about. We don't want to have people feeling like, wow, I am going to be obsolete in 5 to 10 years. Now I have to figure out a whole new career. That is stressful for a human, right? So what I would say here is what we're talking about is upskilling. We're talking about thinking about ways and paths that organizations can take to be able to help their employees upskill. And this has to do with assessing their current skills gaps. So the way I see this, how organizations can do this is, as they're assessing the skills gap, what they need to do is think about 5 to 10 years from now, where do you want to be? Ask yourself that question in terms of automation, in terms of the business you're providing, the products and services you're providing. And then just think about where are the gaps in the skills that you have right now, and start to slowly augment your workforce towards that, right? You don't want to start afresh, right? It's really hard to steer a ship. Like if you have a big ship, right, a huge company, it's really going to be hard for you to steer the whole ship. You're going to have to shut down, right, operations to be able to do that. What you can do is over time, just start to figure out what your organization needs. And then just we can talk about investing in continuous learning. So this is where once you've done the skills assessment, you have to really invest in your team members learning, not fast, right? So what reskilling is, I'm going to take you out of here and I'm going to put you in that program where you're going to learn this new skill, and then 6 to 12 months later, you're going to come back to us stronger than ever. That is not reality, right? What we're talking about is keeping people in the jobs they have right now and upskilling them, which requires a strategy, a strategic plan for learning and development. You must have a strategic learning and development plan to be able to help people continuously learn. You can't just treat it as one and done. We taught you, now you're good, right? No, it has to be part of the job. It has to be part of the flow of work. I'm sure you've heard that term, Jess. Learning in the flow of work. It has to be part of the things we're doing. You have to keep learning all the time. And for me, this is a proactive approach that you have to take to anything you're doing in your life. You have to think about how you can practice every day the skills that you're going to need in your future. And Jess, there are so many different points that I can point out here, but ultimately the answer to your question is really the organizations need to understand where they are at today. You're not going to know where you're going to go or how you're going to get there if you haven't even assessed where you are at today.
That's so important, Lisa, that you mentioned that, and thank you for making that distinction between upskilling and reskilling. And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because something that I read in this article too is that the World Economic Forum predicts that 44% of workers' skills will be disrupted between 2023 and 2028, and generative AI has the potential to push that further. And so, we're talking about employees' roles and skills changing. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about those job roles changing. You talked about having a robust learning and development strategy and the assessment. And so I'm wondering how, organizations can help leverage this human machine partnership and help balance the shift between those job roles changing and these new opportunities, and what can a learning and development strategy look like?
Jess, this question right here that you just asked, when you were asking it, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited because I will tell you this, maybe 4 years ago, research came out, right? And it said, skills will change 2030, right? It started off with 2035. And then the same study said, oh no, now it's 2030. And then here you go asking me the question and you said it's what, 2028? Let me tell you, okay? It is happening faster than anyone is predicting. All these studies have been done before, and what's happening is not a change in the studies. What's happening is they're moving up the date. It's almost like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling. When? We thought it was yesterday, but it's happening now, right? And so for me, this is like the power of this question is really about just realizing that, you talked about leveraging this human and machine partnership. I love hearing that. As a computer scientist, that's what you want to hear. As somebody who loves thinking about how computers can optimize our potential, how we can be better humans because we are using the power of technology to power our communities and power the work we're doing. This question actually reminds me of the strengths-based approach of business, right? So we probably all know the business Gallup, right? So Gallup is an organization that came up with the concept of a strengths-based approach to your teams, to your management, to everything you were doing, your leadership approach. And this approach for me is all about augmenting your workforce to capitalize on their strengths. You're going to hear me say that a lot because that is the power of humans. The humans' strengths cannot be replaced. We're talking about critical thinking. We're talking about having a vision. An AI, artificial intelligence, is using algorithms that are made up of data that already exists. I don't foresee a future where the AI is like making up this new world. It's only making up the new world based off of data that it already has. Who has created that data? The humans have created that data. A human cannot be replaced. This human machine interaction is really about capitalizing on the strength and understanding that the technologies have strength that can't be denied. We're talking about the technologies having strengths to be able to analyze data faster than you can imagine. We're talking about the opportunity to be able to take information that you need and put, I guess you could say, a summarization to it faster than any human can read and comprehend that information, right? Being able to distill so much content into a short amount of time, reducing the speed of delivery for us as humans, doing things faster. And I would even say sometimes accurately, right? So taking information that already exists and doing it better. So this human and machine integration is really like a story, right? It's really like, I think about it like, imagine that you are working on a project on your own, and then your friend who is like, maybe they just have a higher IQ for data. They really are really good at using spreadsheets, so they can take data and crunch it. So they join your team and you all are doing it together. And now the project gets done faster because they're able to take that information you have. It's still your idea, it's still your vision, but they're able to crunch the numbers faster and get it done. Now just replace that friend that you have who's really good at spreadsheets and data and all of that, and replace it with the AI. And that's the augmented workforce we're talking about. That's the human machine teamwork partnership we're talking about. It's no more where you need to think about your computer as, oh, these are just the computers, right? And the computers, who do they report to? Usually in your organizations, who do they report to? They report to the IT department, right? That's where technology goes. That's where the software approvals go to, right? I believe in this day and age, organizations need to stop doing that and realize that AI and any other technologies that are being integrated, technologies that we may not even know exist right now, they need to report to the CEO, right? Because that's where the decisions are being made, right? They need to be a part of every single part of the organization. We have to change the way our organizations are running. We can't no longer relegate it to just one department who runs the systems. The systems are us. Just as much as you're hiring a person to come work in your workforce and checking what skills they have to be able to do the job you're hiring, we have to start thinking about technologies that we're integrating into our organizations from a holistic approach. It's no more just the decision of the IT department. It's no more just the decision of the chief technology officer. It has to be everyone's decision. It has to be everyone's role and responsibility to define the clear strategy of how you're going to have a human and machine strategy. If you do not have a human and machine integration strategy in your organization, you're falling behind, especially in this day and age. Like you heard, the studies started with 2035, skills will change. Oh, by 2030, skills will change. And now we're at this day and age, we're 2028. It's coming, right? If it's not coming next year, it's going to come the year after, where if you are not upskilling your workforce and if you are not giving your employees opportunities to reskill, you are going to be sadly left behind.
Yeah, one thing that I keep thinking as I'm reading all of these publications and following this trend is AI is here. It's coming. Whether you like it or not, this is the future. I like that you talked about this idea of, humans cannot be replaced, because something you said about the sky falling, right? It's just everyone is always talking about, oh, are humans going to become obsolete? What does this look like? What does this partnership look like? So I'm glad that we were able to address that. The article talks about these three key priorities, this kind of framework to help execs, help their employees and their organizations through this change. So I'm wondering, from an L&D lens, what advice do you have for talent development professionals to sort of be able to effectively work alongside AI and enhance the skills for these workers?
Yeah, and this is where the power of our teams come together, right? So as an organization, you have a responsibility not only to your organization, but to the people that you've hired to help them continue to grow in the roles that they have. And if you're going to have a better organization, then you need to have a better workforce. That is your superpower. Your workforce is your superpower. And if you think, oh, AI is going to replace all the humans and the humans will lose their jobs, well, the AIs will not be able to function if there's no humans. That's a fact we have to determine right there, right? And one thing I can say is, the article that you mentioned did say specifically that the jobs that were really going to be impacted by this, space that we're in right now with the power of AI, that the power of algorithms, as I like to say, it's really not the executive jobs, right? They talked about how the impact is really going to be on the lower level jobs that are going to be replaced. And why are those lower level jobs being replaced? Because they're repetitive. We're talking about skills that now a computer can create that spreadsheet and that report in seconds and email it to you every second that you want and send it to everybody and their mother, right? So it's done, right? So that person's role that was doing whatever it was in payroll, sorry, you need to figure out something else, right? But that doesn't mean that person's no longer valuable, right? It means that the organization is challenged with trying to figure out how can they capitalize on this human, right? The human has a brain, the human has a vision, the human has an idea of how they can do their job better. And so what I can say here is that organizations really need to think about how, well, not really organizations, I guess we can say here specifically, people like you and I, Jess, learning and development professionals, you have a duty and a responsibility to the people in your organization to be able to help them become better into the future of their jobs. This means helping them work even better. This means opening up more opportunities for them to learn how to use AI in the jobs that they're in, being able to help them maybe be coached through the process of being able to embrace AI, right? When I think about employee training and development, I think I remember when I was like in the weeds of learning and development, and I felt like I was a little bit of a therapist. And the reason I say that is because as a career therapist, you could say, right, helping people navigate their careers, what you're doing is really taking people from the unknown to the known. You want to take them to where they have a vision and they don't lose hope for the jobs they have. And so, as a learning and development professional, what you need to do is just establish programs that ensure that not only are your teams getting the necessary skills that they need to be able to do their job today, but you're giving them the resources to learn the skills that are necessary alongside technology, alongside AI in this case, right? So, putting a stop to, oh, we're not going to allow anybody to go to ChatGPT in our company. No, IT's blocking that, right? IT's blocking cloud, IT's blocking all of them, right? Guess what you're doing? You're telling your employees that they don't matter, and you're telling them that your organization is not going to be embracing algorithms and technology, which, by the way, are you trying to tell me that your organization already does not use algorithms in the workplace? They do already, right? So what you're doing is just reducing your organization's way to be able to collaborate more closely with AI for problem solving. And so as a learning and development professional, what I would do is, of course, we talked about already a skills assessment. So I would do a full-blown skills assessment with the organization, of course, divided up into different organizational levels and determine where the gaps are related to the strategic future that our teams see. And then create customized learning paths to be able to help our team members develop learning paths that are in line with where they're at. I'm sure in different organizations, just like organizations I've worked in, you'll find people who are on a higher level of learning than others, right? And so you have to meet people where they're at by developing these personalized learning paths so that they can grow they can grow in their learning paths to be able to capitalize on their strengths, right? And then I would even say in this point, train people on AI, teach them what algorithms are. One of the things that I'm passionate about, Jess, is making sure that people pay attention, to the fact that AI, artificial intelligence, does not just exist in this like, oh my gosh, it's new. These are algorithms that they're based off of algorithms. AIs are algorithms. And algorithms, it's important to know that they are biased. It's important to know that you need to have transparency in the fact that you're using algorithms to do the work you're doing. It's important to know about privacy, right? And it's also important to know about dependency, right? So train your employees on all the different ways that they have to be able to understand how are they using AI, right? They shouldn't just blindly put everything into ChatGPT or whatever and then download the report and say, there it is, right? No, you have to be a human and critically think because maybe the data that you presented to the AI was not accurate. So it's giving you incorrect information. So as a human, you have to continue, you have to start now to be trained to start to learn how to pick up on all the different nuances that will help you be successful. I talked about continuous learning too, Jess, right? So as a learning and development professional, create these learning paths within your organization that help people keep up at the pace of technology. I'm sure for those of us who've been using ChatGPT and other AIs for a while now, what it looked like last week is not what it looks like this week. Okay? It is changing literally before our eyes. When you log in, you're like, what just happened, right? So you have to create the same approach within your organization. Keep people abreast of all the new nuances that are happening so that you can promote a culture of ongoing skill development. That's what you need. Because today it's AI, Jess, right? We're talking about it's AI. Oh my gosh, AI. That's the sky's falling off today. What you need to be successful, regardless of any circumstances that happen 10, 20, 30 years from now, is a culture of continuous learning so that your team members have a growth mindset, so that they always know that no matter what it is, no matter what the circumstances are. Remember COVID, right? COVID happened. Oh my gosh, what's happening, right? It doesn't matter what the issue is. Your team is ready because your team is ready for anything that comes their way because you have a culture of ongoing skill development.
Wow, Lisa, that's so powerful. Everything that you just shared to help learning and development professionals. You talked about learning path, skill assessment, training your people on AI, and continuous learning. I love all of that.
I was gonna say, you're more than welcome, Jess. And like part of this process for me is, we talk about learning and development professionals. I feel like we are the change management organization, right? And so not only do we have that responsibility to train people and upskill them and coach them and mentor them, of course, with other people on the team, you don't do it as a silo. But as a learning and development professional, you have that responsibility of being the change management, advocate for the organization. You're the one who people come to learn things. And if you're not doing that right now, if you do not have that status in your organization, you need to go and get it, because that's your role. And the only way the organization is successful is because you are successful.
Liza, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your insights and this framework for learning and development professionals. As always, it's a blast. I really enjoy having this discussion with you and talking about this topic. Where can folks find you if they want to keep up with you and all the great things that you've got going on?
Yes, I would like to say that you can Google me, Liza Wisner, Lizawisner. I'm probably the first person who comes up on Google. So any of those, you can Google me and find me. But I love being on LinkedIn, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My username is Liza Wisner. And of course, you can always go to opensesame.com and find out more about the services we provide in regards to e-learning.
All right. Thank you so much, Liza.
Thank you so much, Jess. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to the next time.
All right. That's a wrap on this episode, everyone. A huge thanks to Liza Wisner for joining me on this episode of Ask a Trainer. If you want to stay connected to Liza, be sure to check out the show notes below. And if you want to find out when our next Ask a Trainer video drops, be sure to subscribe to ATD's YouTube channel and hit that bell icon to be notified when our next video drops. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Jess Thompson with ATD.